Hi, you're watching Dog-Eared Musings, and I'm Monica, and today I'm doing a book review of the book Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This is a British horror novel that was published in March this year. Honestly, this was a book that I put off reading because I had heard so many really good reviews of this book from creators who I really like and respect. But I was really nervous that these good reviews would kind of overhype how I went into the book. And the only thing that I can say is I wish that I had read this book sooner. I ended up really enjoying this book to the point where I feel like this book might have been one of the best books that I've read so far this year. So who is Julia Armfield? She's a playwright, which we'll talk a little bit later in the review, but her kind of way of setting up the scene and dialogue is very reminiscent to aspects that are seen in playwriting. She also got a master's in Victorian art and literature, which you can see heavily reflects in the themes that are depicted in this novel. Armfield is self-described as a queer author, and it is imperative in her writing that she is able to draw in themes that are super relevant to her life. Specifically, what were themes that were reflected in Our Wives Under the Sea were kind of drawing on the ideas of acceptability and assumptions, and Armfield really works in kind of disrupting those things and analyzing those things as well in her work. Armfield also focuses on her ideas of faith, specifically the smallness of humanity, as well as the ideas of grief and the crushing feelings of grief. So what is the plot of Our Wives Under the Sea? This book focuses on a couple, Miri and Leah. They are two women who have gotten into the groove of living together and being married. Leah is a deep sea explorer who is a scientist, and after one of her deep sea dives, Miri is convinced that Leah has been changed. Something about Leah is off. And this is a horror novel, but it also mostly focuses on the dissolving of a marriage. What are maybe the drawbacks for certain readers? It was really hard for me to think of any drawbacks. I had said earlier that I thought that this was one of my favorite books of the year. I know that this review might be a little biased, and I had to do a little bit of digging when thinking about what might take a reader out of the book. I would also like to highlight that while this might take certain readers out of the book, this did not take me out of the book. For readers who like to focus on plot, this might not be the book for you. This is a heavily written character study that focuses on kind of the inner monologues of our characters and the inner workings of these two women as they come to terms with their relationships and their identities. So if you're somebody who is in it for the plot and less about character building, this might not be a book for you. But if you are someone who really loves a character study and wants to know your characters and wants to feel like your characters are real life people, then maybe take a gander at Our Wives Under the Sea. Another thing that might draw you out of the book is how much are you into body horror? Now, this book doesn't get too gruesome, but there are definitely scenes that might make you feel a little icky. And so if body horror is not your thing, this might be a book that you might have a pause in picking up. So with that said, what were the things that I specifically enjoyed when reading this book? I'm sorry, I'm laughing. The first thing I wrote was the vibes. So this is a book that is all about the vibes. It is a deeply unsettling book that just latched onto me in terms of all of the feelings that the characters were having, especially the scenes with Miri. This book is written in split point perspective, which can be a hard perspective to read when done poorly, but this book is done really well. Specifically, how Armfield is able to execute this perspective well is really showing the feelings that these two characters are going through within their perspectives, and the loneliness that Miri specifically describes in her coming to terms with the positions of her relationship and the alienation that she is currently feeling from her wife, who is going through some pretty rough stuff, felt both in line with the typical thriller and Victorian thriller genres, but also felt very contemporary and realistic. Another aspect that I really loved about this book was Armfield drew in on her playwriting skills. I felt like I was watching a contemporary play unfolding with each page that I read, and I really enjoyed that experience. It's been a while since I've been able to fully visualize a story, and I was able to do that throughout the book. I felt like I was in the world, and it was really exciting to be in Armfield's world. And I really hope that this gets some A24 indie movie remake or indie movie adaptation starring two awesome actresses I can't think of. If you read the book and have two ideas of actresses who you'd like to play the leads, feel free to comment below, because let's start a petition on getting a movie made of this book, because I would love to see it in real life. So what are some read-alikes? If you liked Our Wives Under the Sea, what might be some books that you might be drawn to? I know that I talk about Mary Shelley a lot and Frankenstein because it's one of my favorite old-timey books. I hate using the term classic, but it's one of my favorite classics. I point towards Frankenstein because Armfield definitely uses Victorian literature as an inspiration in her writing, and Mary Shelley's book Frankenstein is kind of one of the pivotal texts in that canon. Sorry, I can't believe I said that unironically. Anyway, I think that if you are looking for a original Victorian to kind of look into, Frankenstein might be a really interesting lens, especially when thinking about science and the aspect of modernity and how man and invention can create problems and create ruptures in humanity. Another piece of media that I might recommend if you liked Our Wives Under the Sea is Jordan Peele's episode of The Twilight Zone. I forget what the title of it's called, but it's specifically about an octopus. It definitely gave me the same vibes. I mean, the episode takes place on a submarine. There's some creepy, spooky undersea creatures. There's the claustrophobia of being underwater and the kind of uncertainty of the people who you're on the trip with and the science expedition that you're on. And those are all vibes that were very similar to the book. So that was my review of Our Wives Under the Sea. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really glad that I read it in the later part of the year as a way to kind of close out my year of reading. Anyway, that's been the review. I'm Dog-Eared. I'm Monica, and this is Dog-Eared Musings. Happy readings.